Alright. Este é o episódio 003 do Agora Eu Falo Podcast. E neste episódio, my friend, vai ser todo em inglês. Você vai poder baixar todo o script lá no blog. E também você vai poder praticar questions and answers comigo. Está imperdível. Here we go!
Welcome to the Agora Eu Falo Podcast, where you learn English in a way you'll never forget. And now, your host, the craziest English teacher from Brazil, Leonardo Leite.
Alright, my dear friend. And welcome to episode number 3. I am really excited about this podcast. And first off, I want to thank you for the feedback and for all the comments on the blog. I don't know if you are aware that all the episodes here on this podcast, they are published on my blog, and all the material and all the download material is there for you, available for you to download. Anyway, and if you want to leave a comment about the episode, just go to www.agorafaloacademy.com/blog. Or if you just go to agorafalo.com and you just click on the blog tab. That's all. Anyway, I am really excited about this episode because first, I don't know if you've noticed, it's going to be all in English, my friend. Yes, I really understand that what you really want is that I talk in English to you so you can practice your listening. And you're right, Come on. Let's not be afraid of, putting ourselves out there and exposing our ears to English speaking. And that's what we're doing here. And in this episode, I want to do something very different. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to tell you a story. You know that I am the king of the magic stories, right? And I'm going to tell you this story. And it's a story about one of the experiences, one of the most important experiences I've ever had in my life, which is my exchange program. When I was an exchange student in the United States back in the 90s, right? In the early 90s. So I'm going to tell you the story. You're going to listen. And of course, you can download the script of this story all in English so you can read and listen. But we are going to do something even more exciting. I am going to transform this audio, this story of my life in America, into a magic story. So what's going to happen is you will listen, you will read and listen, and then you are going to answer questions about my story, and then you're going to ask questions about my story. And, of course, this episode is going to turn into a magic story, a real lesson, a real class. I'm going to try to make it short, though, because, we can't have a 2-hour episode because, it gets too long. So I'm going to try to stick to about, 35 minutes to 50 minutes or maybe an hour. Let's see how it goes. So my intention here is to have you listen to me talking in English to you, practicing English with you wherever you go. So you can be listening to this podcast in the car. You can be listening to this episode in the gym, right? Commuting to work, on the bus, on the train, traveling on a plane. So I want this podcast to be something really fun for you. And so that's why it is so important that you leave your feedback there on the blog. So don't forget to go back to the blog and leave your comment there, which is very simple because all you got to do is go to agotofollowacademy.com/blog/the number of the episode 003. Right? Okay. So in this story, I'm going to talk about my exchange student experience, my exchange program. I don't know if you know this, but back in 1991, I went abroad as an exchange student to Seattle in the state of Washington in the United States. It wasn't my first experience going abroad. I had already traveled abroad before I went to the United States, which helped me a lot with my English, but the big jump start in my English was when I went to the United States. And before I start telling you the whole story, it's important that you understand that I don't speak the English I speak today because I spent this exchange program in the United States. So you know that the exchange program lasts only a year. And I stayed in the United States longer than a year. And then I can tell you a little bit more about that later. But it is very, very important that it's not the solution for your English speaking, okay? You can speak English exactly the way I do. I don't find my English that good, okay? I really don't. I think I make mistakes all the time, and sometimes I think my pronunciation is not that good, but something is true. I can communicate and people can understand me, and I can talk about anything I want, and I can listen to people talking about anything they want. If I don't understand what they say, I know how to manage it. So if somebody says something that I don't understand, I don't panic, and I can get the message across. Anyway, let's go to the story. The first part of the story is to tell you what part of my life it was. So it was in the beginning of the 90s. It was 1991, and I was 18 years old. Actually, my birthday is on July 1st. And my trip was scheduled to the 16th of August of 1991. So I had already turned 18 when I traveled. Why am I telling you about this age thing? Because it was crazy. According to the program, one cannot take this program if he's over 18. And I had applied for the exchange program 2 years before. So I applied for the exchange program in 1989, I think. I was 16, 17. And, I took all the tests and I went, I had all the interviews, but nobody told me anything. 1 year later, I was already getting ready for the university exams here, what we call vestibular, right? So I was getting ready for vestibular here in Brazil when I got a call. Well, actually, I got a call from the guy who works at FedEx. It's one of those express delivery companies. FedEx, DHL, TNT, UPS, right? Well, this is so funny. The guy called me, and I was living in an apartment, but when I applied for the exchange program, I was living in a house with my parents, and my parents got divorced, and then I moved, back with my mom into our apartment, and so that happened in between. So this guy calls me and said, "Are you Leonardo Leite?" Well, yes. Well, I am blah blah blah, and I work for FedEx, and I've been trying to reach you for about 4 months. But you moved out, and I wasn't able to find you until one of your neighbors gave me your phone. Remember, guys, 1991, there was no cell phone, right? And I think that my phone number was the same. I think, I'm not sure. Anyway, so this guy called me and said, "Oh, I have a package for you. So what's your address?" So I gave him the address, and he came to my house and brought this big envelope from FedEx. When I opened it, it was a letter saying, "You have been approved, and you need to make the arrangements. You're traveling. You have to be here on the 17th of August, 1991. Well, guess what? I was reading this document on July 15th. It was exactly 1 month. I had 1 month to prepare for everything. That was crazy. It was crazy. And lots of people said, "Oh, come on, you're getting ready to go to college. How can you do that?" I said, "I don't care. I am going." "Well, but do we have money?" And my mom was worried about money because we didn't have a lot of money. And they said, "Mom," and my mom had recently got divorced from my dad, so I had to talk to my mom. I had to talk to my dad. And my dad was going a little better that time, and he said, "Okay, I'll buy you the ticket." And my mom said, "Okay, I'll help you with the monthly expenses and so on." Anyway, I was going. So I went to the Rotary. I don't know if I mentioned that I took the Rotary Exchange student program. So I went to Rotary, and the lady there said, "Oh boy, you're late. I mean, you've got a month to go, and you have to go." The lady said. I said, I know. So what am I supposed to do?" So they arranged a few trainings with some former exchange students. And, they gave me a sort of a lecture on how things were going to go. Anyway, I was ready to go. So I had to, I had to not cancel, but I had to make arrangements at school so I wouldn't miss that year. And that was my senior year in Brazil. Well, now I'm not sure if it was senior or junior. Not sure if it was second or third grade of our school system here. Anyway, and my English was not that good either. My English was not that good. So in 1 month, I sort of prepared myself for emergency situations as I arrive in the United States. And that was funny. And I decided, guys, remember, I was 18 years old, okay? So I thought to myself, I think I'm going to memorize some phrases. So imagine, I knew nothing about English learning or English teaching or anything. I had already been to those cursinhos de Inglês, and my English was really bad. I couldn't understand very much what people said. I could express myself somehow, but I really couldn't understand what people, especially native speakers. And so I decided to imagine everything that people there in the States would ask me. So what are they going to ask me as soon as I get there? So that's how I started preparing myself. So, okay, I know that they're going to ask me how my trip was. What about my family? How many people are in my family? What the members of my family do? About my school. I thought about that. Okay, I really did. So I started collecting the phrases to say as soon as they asked me about those subjects, right? And man, I tell you what, I did great. I really did, because I practiced. I repeated the dialogues in my head for these 30 days before I traveled, and it was great. Well, anyway, so I talked about when it was, how old I was, how I prepared. So the preparation is very, very important, guys. So if you are going to a place in which you're going to have to speak English, be prepared. Think about the things that you were going to talk about. Think about the questions that people might ask you. Right? Okay, what are people going to talk to me about? What are they going to ask me about? And be creative. I mean, people normally talk about the same things, right? I knew that they were going to ask me about my trip. I knew they were going to ask me about my country, my language, my family. That is a lot of things to talk about. Anyway, the trip to the United States. That was the 16th of August, 1991. And the most interesting part was that some of my best friends decided to drive me to the airport. Can you believe that? That was nice. That was really nice. So my friends went to the airport. My father and I don't know if somebody else from my family went, because I remember my mother didn't want to go to the airport. She was gonna cry. She had been crying for the entire 30 days, right? So, but I remember it was my father, maybe my aunt or uncle. I can't remember, but I do remember my friends coming to the airport with me to say goodbye. And that was great. Imagine when you are 18, man, your friends are the most important people in the world. And you know what? They still are. Your friends are the most important people in your world, my friend, believe me. Because you know what? I've been friends with these people until today. Isn't that nice? So they drove me to the airport, and I said all the goodbyes and so on, and I boarded the plane alone. And as soon as I took my seat on the plane, I reached in my pocket, in my jacket, and inside that pocket there was one note from each one of them. Each one of them wrote me a note, saying, "Oh, we love you. I love you. And please enjoy your stay there. And we're all waiting for you here." Oh, man, that was great. It was really, really cool. Anyway, on this trip to the United States, there were a few other exchange students from Rotary. One from São Paulo, and another one from Rio, another one from Belo too. So there were a few guys and girls going to the same place. Well, actually, going to Los Angeles. My final destination was Seattle in the state of Washington. So there were few people going with me to Los Angeles, and from Los Angeles, each one would connect to a different city. But I still had this girl, and I remember her name. And if she's listening to, because I lost touch with this lady, I met her on the plane, and we spent the entire exchange program here in the United States being friends. And when we came back, we lost touch. I remember her name. Her name was Valeriana from São José do Rio Preto. So if somebody from São José do Rio Preto is listening to this episode, please get in touch, because Valeriana was part of a very special moment in my life. And I know that was very, very special for her too, because we went to the same city. We both went to Seattle, and she had her experience in a city very close to Seattle, but the airport was the same. Anyway, we landed in Los Angeles. From Los Angeles, we flew to Seattle, and I remember Valeriana didn't speak English at all. She really didn't. I mean, she spoke a few words, and she was really, really nervous. But when we got off the plane, and then we met our families. And what do you think happened when I and Valeriana met our families at the airport? What were they doing? What did we talk about? Could I speak English to them? Could Valeriana speak English to her family? In the next episode, I'm going to tell you. So, this first part, I talked about when I went as an exchange student, how old I was, how I got the opportunity, how I prepared, and the trip. And arriving in Seattle is going to be on the next episode, right? Okay, good. Well, you heard the first part of the story, and now you are going to practice this story. So read and listen many times. Go back, right? Go back on this. Play this part again with the story. Listen and read the story. You can go there. You can go there on the blog and read the story. And now you're going to practice a little bit with the magic story with me here. What's the magic story? Leonardo's experience as an exchange student in the United States when he was, I'm not going to tell you how old he was because it's part of the questions. Anyway, so now if you take a look on the PDF, there's a set of questions. I am going to ask you questions, and you are going to answer these questions do jeito que você quiser. É muito importante que você escute a minha pergunta e você abra a boca ao falar. Você já deve estar familiarizado com esta primeira parte da história. And now, all you gotta do is answer the questions. Você pode responder com uma palavra, duas, a frase inteira, o que for melhor para você. Se você não conseguir entender a minha pergunta, você volta um pouquinho, escuta de novo, ou você pode escutar a minha resposta. Eu vou dar a resposta logo em seguida. Então aproveite o tempo que eu vou dar para você fazer a resposta, e isso aqui vai ficar parecendo uma conversa entre eu e você. Are you ready? Woohoo! Here we go. So, my first question to you, when did Leo go abroad as an exchange student? When did he go abroad as an exchange student? Okay, 1991. All right. How old was Leo when he went abroad? 18. Very good. And how was Leo's English back then? Not good, not very good, bad. All right. Was it his first experience abroad? No, it wasn't. It wasn't his first experience abroad. He had already traveled before. How did Leo prepare his English before he went? Phrases, right? He learned phrases. He prepared English phrases. Did Leo go to the airport alone? Yes or no? No, he didn't. So, who did Leo go to the airport with? His friends and family, except his mother, right? Okay. Well, and who did Leo travel to the United States with? With other exchange students. Okay. So now you go back e dá uma olhada nas perguntas. Olhe as perguntas ou escute as perguntas. Na verdade, o melhor exercício é se você for lá baixar o PDF com as perguntas e aí você olha para cada pergunta que eu fiz. Então, a primeira pergunta foi: When did Leo go abroad as an exchange student? Second question was: How old was he? Third question: How was his English? Fourth question: Was it his first experience abroad? Yes or no? And then, how did he prepare his English? Right? Next, did he go to the airport alone? Did he travel alone? And finally, who did he travel with? Now, you look at the questions. By looking at the question, you start retelling the story. Então aí é o momento de você recontar a história que você ouviu, simplesmente olhando a pergunta. Por quê? Porque eu quero que você consiga recontar essa história sem precisar memorizá-la. Então você vai olhar ali a pergunta: When did Leo go abroad as an exchange student? Só que você vai ler essa pergunta em silêncio e vai falar sobre ela. Well, Leo went abroad as an exchange student in 1991. E logo em seguida a pergunta é: How old was he? Então você continua: And he was 18 years old. E a próxima pergunta é: How was his English? E aí você pega e fala: Well, his English was not very good. E a próxima pergunta é: Was it his first experience abroad? E você fala, aí você vai continuando. And it wasn't his first experience abroad. He had already traveled before. E a próxima pergunta é: How did he prepare for his English? And then you say, well, he prepared his English collecting phrases, thinking about what other people would ask him. E aí você fala do jeito que você quiser. Você pode simplesmente lembrar: He learned phrases. Right? E a próxima pergunta é: Did he go to the airport alone? E aí você pega e fala: Well, he didn't go to the airport alone. He went to the airport with his friends and family. E a próxima pergunta é: Did he travel alone? And then you say, and then you say, No, he didn't travel alone. Não precisa falar o no, hein? Eu disse aqui no como se fosse respondendo uma pergunta. Você vai olhar para a pergunta Did he travel alone? And say, and he didn't travel alone. Ou então, and he traveled with some other Rotary exchange students. A próxima pergunta vem: Who did he travel with? And then you can say, well, he traveled with Valeriana, or he traveled with other exchange students. Você entendeu o que você deve fazer? Então, como é que você pode usar este episode, this podcast episode, como prática para sua escuta e fala? Primeiro você vai treinar a sua escuta, listening and reading, a história que eu acabei de contar, que está lá no blog. Você pode baixar esse material junto com esse áudio. E aí você vai responder as minhas perguntas como se você estivesse conversando comigo, e depois você vai simplesmente olhar para as perguntas e recontar a história do seu jeito, porque o que importa é o que você entendeu e recontar a história do jeito que você consegue. Você não precisa contar a história exatamente do jeito que eu falei, usando as frases e palavras que eu usei. Você vai usar aquilo que você consegue. Não consegue muito? Usa uma palavra só. Já consegue mais ou menos? Faça a frase. Alright? E nos próximos episódios nós vamos fazer a mesma coisa, porém, ao final você também vai fazer perguntas sobre a historinha que eu contar. Ok? Alright, good. Eu tinha pensado em fazer este episódio inteiro, só que como eu vi que ele ficou muito rico e bacana, eu resolvi dividir ele em partes para você ir treinando em partes. Right? So, my dear friend, I hope you have enjoyed. Se você gostou, não deixe de dar um like ou deixar a sua avaliação no agregador de podcast ou simplesmente ir lá no blog, acessar a página do episode number 3, baixar o PDF e deixar o seu comentário. Eu vou ficar muito feliz em responder. All right? Thank you, my friend, for listening, and I'll see you then. Bye now.